Welcome back to the COS Business Podcast. My name is Andrew Hasley, and I am the host of the show. Today we have on Danielle McCarthy with 5 Rings Financial. And if you do want to address the camera, your camera's over there.
Awesome.
Mine's over here.
Perfect, because I'm like, that's awkward for me, but I'm right there. Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Exactly. But you also have a pretty cool podcast called Coffee, Chicks, and Cash, right?
Yes, Coffee, Chicks, and Cash, the podcast, is my podcast name. And yeah, it's actually something I started kind of as a dare and a challenge from a good friend of mine and guy pal, Scott Brandt.
Nice.
And I kind of hemmed and hawed it around. And then October took the leap. Actually, August, he was bugging me about it. September took the leap, started asking friends to come on as guests and support them in their business. And it's kind of just growing from there.
Are you getting any value from that as well? Like, are you learning things?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, yes, learning about myself because, put me in front of a room of people, I can talk and I'm fine. But going into a podcast and not being able to read the audience, rapport and have that rapport and get their feedback was definitely super scary and had to learn to just trust myself and know what I was going to do. And then the podcast has kind of taken a life of its own because I don't have to come up with the script or the content. I just go find amazing women, invite them to come on to talk about what they're doing and whether they're business owners, stay-at-home moms, somewhere in between, they have a 9-to-5 job. But it's really honestly just meant to be a safe place for women to talk about money and learn. And there's a financial education component as well. And that's kind of the whole point of it. And as I'm learning myself, I've learned some great things about myself, about money and finance that I hadn't thought of in that way for myself, as well as now being able to share it out. So that's kind of the whole impetus of the podcast. And so the content creates itself. I just find the amazing women. So that's been the amazing part of it.
I think that you're niched down into those 3 aspects.
Yep.
Those 2 aspects, but coffee, I guess, is an aspect.
The coffee is it's just to kind of give you, I love alliterations.
Yeah.
And it's also just meant to be like 2 girlfriends meeting in a coffee shop and have that conversation. And so Coffees, Chicks, and Cash just kind of came out that way. It's also mirrored on a program that we do in 5 Rings Financial called Wine, Women, and Wealth, which is, again, creating a safe community for women to learn about things about finance and money and showcase other amazing women, creating that a community of strong women achieving financial goals. So I kind of took that idea and the
made it your own
and made it my own, put my own little tweak to it, and came up with Coffees, Chicks, and Cash, the podcast.
Sweet. Well, I can't wait to just have a conversation and get into all that stuff. Yeah. But before I do, I am going to read the sponsorships, the ads.
Awesome. Perfect.
Which is my video production company, Vehement Visuals. We produce videos for businesses, really helping them dive into the online world via powerful video assets. There's a lot of things we can do that can help with video and businesses and helping them grow and improve their processes via video.
Nice.
And that's Vehement Visuals. And the second advertisement, I'd like to advertise this advertising space. And if you want me to promote your business at the beginning of every episode, read a 15-second, 30-second ad, or even just improvise it. Maybe you just want me to be like, hey, just shout me out. Shout out my business at the beginning of every episode. We can make that happen. I would like to have a conversation with anyone who thinks that they could find some value in that. And you can reach me anywhere on social media, Andrew Hasley, or reach out to the COS Business Podcast at cosbusinesspodcast@gmail.com.
Nice. Good job.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I'm starting to get that radio.
Yeah.
I guess I always had a little radio personality.
I think so.
I was born that way.
I think it just means that you have a personality. I don't think that there's a personality for radio or for TV. I think you just have to have an extrovert portion
for sure
to just jump out there. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to roll the intro music and we'll get started.
Perfect.
What happened to it? I don't hear it. Do you hear it?
No, I don't hear anything.
Things in the community of nice. And I'll keep that in there like it is, dude. Yeah. See, that's the rawness that I like about it.
And the authenticity of just doing a podcast, and not everything goes according to plan. Imperfect action, and just take it. Do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so your podcast, it's fairly new, like you said. How's that been going for you?
The podcast is fairly new. It launched in October. And so I think we're on full-length episode 10 or 12. And that's been fun because the full-length episodes are highlighting an amazing woman who's either striving for business of her own. She has a quick She might have a 9 to 5
I'm gonna have
job.
to pause you for a second because that box is ringing.
Like I was saying, the full-length episode highlights and showcases a woman who is striving for financial success, and we talk about their money struggles, their money challenges, as well as their rewards and their successes, and what they wish they would have known, what they would like to learn, so many different things. Other people that have come on, a guest of yours, Brandy and Leo Nunez.
Yes.
Brandy came on and the podcast and conversations that we're not having about health insurance and what that looks like, and that there's different types of health insurance and other ways besides major medical, and other ways that, you know, her business is bringing value that's not major medical. Another friend of mine, Candace Vinci, came on and she talked about Money Mommy and Me. It's a program that she runs. She's also with 5 Rings, but her and her husband own a local business here in Colorado Springs called Front Range Insurance Brokers. And she runs that. It's a place to teach parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, anybody about how to teach kids about money.
Okay.
And so she came on and she talked about that, as well as what it's like to be a newlywed, new mom, new business owner, just moved, like all of these amazing stories, and showcasing them in a way that empowers women, educates women. And then part of the podcast is there's a little 5-10 minute financial education piece that I do. Because financial education is not taught in schools. I can tell you that as a retired educational professional.
Okay.
It's not typically taught. And
it's kind of failed us.
It's failed us in that aspect. And there's also, because the industry is constantly changing, there's new products.
I just found out that credit scores only started in the 80s.
Yes, exactly. And up until our early 20s, up until like the 1990s, you couldn't know your credit score.
Oh, wow.
You didn't know what your credit score was. So you could go into a bank and say, I want to open an account. And the bank could say, nope, sorry, your credit score says it's too low. We can't open an account. And they wouldn't tell you what your credit score was.
That's messed up.
So that's been changed a lot. And then something else about your credit score that I was just talking about in an upcoming episode in December. We're doing 31 days of giving yourself the gift of money. And one of them, we talk about credit, and that it's credit repair and how you do it. And that the laws around collections and credit are actually built more for the consumer empowerment than for the company's empowerment. But yet the way it's presented to us makes us as consumers feel disempowered. So that's the whole point of the podcast. Our small little tidbits on that, and we actually talk in that podcast program, or in that particular episode.
It's in Coffee, Chicks, and Cash, but it's a little short series you're doing with inside of it.
So every Sunday I release a full episode of an amazing lady showcasing an amazing woman doing some amazing things. And then as a challenge, as a new podcaster, to kind of keep myself
providing value,
but also in that, what am I learning, and that fun balance of excitement and fear. And
for sure,
holy man, I'm actually doing this. I did a 30-day challenge for the month of November called Your Daily Money Shot, and in there we go and we talk about terms and financial concepts and that type of thing. In December, we're focusing on giving yourself the gift of money and how you can take small, tangible, actionable steps and start giving yourself money, and how to teach you how to pay yourself first, how to save $5 a day, how these things work, and all of that. And so those are small little bonuses daily that come out on the podcast for people to do as well. And again, I highlight an amazing person, another woman who's doing that. So I've brought on friends, I've brought on agents in my agency who are licensed to talk about certain financial concepts that I can't, because I don't have that licensure as a financial professional. The individual that's helping me, she's an amazing wealth coach from the East Coast that I met via Facebook. She put out a call to be on a podcast. A mutual acquaintance said, hey, you guys should meet. Here we go. So the synchronicity has been fun. So yes, so Sundays, the full episodes come out with highlighting the women. And then every day is a little piece of education and fun to just, again, teach yourself about money and how to take those actionable steps.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. So that's the podcast. What about your business?
So my business is with 5 Rings Financial. So in that, I teach people about money. There's a theme. I don't know if you catch this. I teach people different accounts and programs out there that are not the traditional thought of programs when it comes to when it comes to retirement, specifically tax-free retirement. There are some new amazing programs and accounts out there that kind of go against the grain of what we've been taught. Again, financial literacy, what we've been taught, because the 401ks, just as a quick little trivia thing, 401ks were actually in the 80s, came out in the 80s, and were meant for C-suite executives. They weren't honestly, at that point in time, thought of for middle America, for the everyday Joe. And so most people are like, wait, what? Wait a second. And that's why we typically don't understand them. And that's about as far as I can talk to them. But again, Five Rings specializes in working with middle America and the average Joe who doesn't maybe have millions of dollars in assets, maybe doesn't even have, hundreds of thousands of dollars or even $100,000 in retirement assets. But we can help find you programs and accounts that can start that can do a tax-free retirement. Five Rings, we also do another program called $1 Million Baby Program, which is a great way to fund college planning and college funding for a child. That's not what you typically hear of in the financial industry. So there's a whole bunch of host of things that we do, and we do it through education. We want to push through and give that financial literacy piece to middle America. And my mentor in Five Rings, and I have several, we are a personal growth business that happens to dabble in financial education. So one of our mottos is work harder on yourself than you do your business, and your business will grow. And I have to say that's the truth, because regardless of whatever you are doing, it all starts with you. And if you're not willing to stretch yourself, learn, put yourself out there. One of my guests, she stated, I think it was Gabrielle Simmons.
Oh, really?
Yep. She's been on your podcast too.
Yeah.
She was like, fail often, fail fast. And especially when learning about yourself, because that way you can get out of your own way. And so that's been fun. So there's a lot of reading and a lot of training and a lot of just fun. It's a fun company to work with, and I'm glad I found it, and I'm so ever grateful for finding it right after my husband's death. So yeah.
So how long have you been doing this business, actually?
How long have I been with Five Rings? I started 2017, shortly after my husband died. And I went to how I found the company, and what I did was I went to a Wine, Women, and Wealth event. And as I sat there, I was blown away by some of the information I was given. And I was just like, holy man, I've done coursework towards an MBA. I've taught kids about money. Where did I miss these principles?
Okay, yeah.
And why wasn't I teaching them? Why
there's
wasn't
a problem
I taught
here,
there?
yeah.
There's a disconnect. There's a problem. And then from there, went to a Money 101 workshop. They gave me, and it's something that we still do, when we're allowed to meet in person. We feed you, because what a better way, right? To get
I've done that before, yeah.
But anyway, it's a dinner workshop because we understand that people are busy. So if we can, get your time, bring you some value. And we teach 6 financial principles that we think everybody should know. Everything from compound interest, the time value of money, saving $5 a day, tax-free retirement, and a host of others, not to give everything away. And then from there, great. If you want to talk to us more about it, then please reach out and have a conversation with us. We'll reach out to you too, just to give us feedback about what you thought about the program that you just sat through, and kind of go from there. And I loved that aspect as a retired professional who's always been a teacher. I've been a teacher since I was a child. I have fond memories, and my family loves to remind me of my dolls and my teddy bears all lined up, and I have a blue chalkboard and
awesome.
I'm writing on it. That was always there. And so this is just kind of the latest evolvement of where I'm at in life and going, and being able to combine that caring for people, loving on people, educating people, and helping them find their way to their best path, and protecting them, and taking my life lessons and being able to impart pieces of that to other people. That's the entire purpose.
It sounds like you've really found your calling.
I have found my calling.
Yeah.
Teaching has always been my calling. And now just shifting it to money and all things financial and all things money.
And it sounds like you found a good community too of a bunch of like-minded people.
Yeah. 5 rings. Like that was true divine guidance, whatever you want to call it. That truly was divine guidance getting me there. Grace just said, and here you go. This is where you need to be. So smart enough to follow it.
Yeah. So at 5 Rings, do you kind of run it like your own business? You're responsible for everything?
So we're all individual contractors with the company, and the company's based out of Littleton, Colorado, which I love as a Colorado native. It's been in Colorado for well over 16 years. And it's been in business for a little over 36 years, if I remember correctly, in some form or another. 5 Rings is obviously just the latest. And I love all of it. It's the education piece. It's the approach of how when, if I want to bring in a new agent to my personal agency, there's a process. And it's not the typical stick them in a room and just have them learn everything by fire hose. It's actually come alongside them and not come alongside me. I come alongside them and guide them. And it really goes back to, it uses a thing of Socratic method, which is allowing the learner to guide where to go. And then as the teacher, as the mentor, you see where they need some support and where they need that aspect and that scaffolding and that support. And then when they're ready to walk on their own, they do. And they actually just run. And I loved that. I didn't want to sit somewhere and just absorb everything. I get to be in it.
You have mentors.
I have mentors who mentor me on how to do this. And then I get to pass that along. And I think that's the best way to learn and study. And as a retired teacher and professional, that is one of the best ways to learn.
So part of the business model is getting other agents, and part of the business model is just helping people with are there 2 parts of the business model?
Yeah, so there's pretty much, yeah. Okay. I mean, if you want to have agents and build an agency, you can. You don't have to.
Okay, I got you.
And at first, I didn't think I wanted to. But then what interesting started happening is people are like, oh, my gosh, as I would sit down with my mentor and talk with them, they're like, oh, I want to learn how to do this too. Like actually, all the agents that have joined my agency, I've not asked them to be a part of it. They have just seen the value themselves and said, so wait, how do I do this? And I like that approach better because it's not me being forceful. It's not sales. It's not being pushy. It's people find the value for themselves, whether it's with our programs and our accounts or
then you guys can grow together.
The business, right? And I love the agents that I've brought on that have found me and said, "Oh my gosh, I want to do this with you," and let me mentor them through this process.
And you could also, if you're mentoring someone, they can go off and be their own agency as well, right?
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. They're not beholden to me. I'm not beholden to them. Other than I want to see them grow and I want them to live their best life.
For sure.
I develop people. I make people. That's the whole point of my business.
So how do you guys go about getting, I guess, clients, people that you help?
So that's the thing. I invite people to Wine, Women, and Wealth. I invite them to Money 101. And again, if they see the value of that, one-to-ones, I like doing the one-to-ones. Right now, I'm, shameless plug, I'm looking to come in and do presentations to realtors, to bankers, to mortgage places, to law firms, to CPAs. I would love to come in and do a money management type presentation, as well as, teach people how to do all these amazing things.
I know I had Naomi Montez on, and she said one of her strategies when she started 15 years ago. She said one of her strategies was, going into places, knocking on doors, and teaching people. That's how she did it.
And she and I just sat down. In fact, she's actually going to be, we're trying to coordinate schedules right now. She's going to be a guest on my podcast.
Yes, she would be perfect. Yes. That's
totally
awesome.
Love that. And it's so fun that, especially in the Colorado Springs area, that because we have such a great business dynamic and that it's so relational instead of transactional, because ideally, in a different situation, Naomi and I could be considered competitors as opposed to partners who she has her specialty, I have my specialty, and here we are and able to actually support each other and do so in such a great manner.
For sure.
And then, having coffee with her and then invited her onto the podcast.
Yeah, that's good. I'm excited for that. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I think that's kind of the way business is It's not just here in Colorado Springs, but definitely here in Colorado Springs.
Right.
I see it here for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And you feel it here. Other places, not so much. But again, I think it's all on how you approach business too. Are you coming from a scarcity mindset or a sufficiency mindset and or abundance mindset? And I come from abundance. I'm not going to click with everybody. I'm not your typical financial gal.
Exactly.
I mean, that's one of my hashtags. Hashtag not your typical financial gal.
Yeah.
I wear jeans and I appreciate wearing jeans. I don't wear business attire necessarily. I mean, I can, and that's appropriate for some of my clients. But there's also a point where this is a real conversation about money. People would rather tell you about their sex life than their money.
For sure.
And so, because that's something very intimate, there's shame, there's guilt, there's embarrassment. I mean, think about it. I mean, so being able to meet somebody where they're at and with no judgment, that's a place where I want to come from as well.
For sure. And, like you said, there's abundance out there. People maybe are right fit for someone else that's not for you. And I don't look at it as them taking away clients from me. I'd look at it like that client found their right fit.
Yes, exactly. They found me, I was still of value because I became a connector. And that's a huge thing to be, right?
Yes.
Is I may not be the best fit, but I know somebody who might be, or I might know a couple people.
And you're helping them out, helping both parties out,
Right, right. So it's a win-win-win chicken dinner because I just created value for myself, whether they use me or not, or go with my business. But they're going to remember that. And
it's always good to give too,
right?
Just
exactly, because it comes back to you. It's part of that energy flow.
It's exactly energy flow, and I just learned about how giving, receiving, giving without expectation, of course, but you can't have one without the other. No matter how it comes back to you in a different form, it's still, it's like the tide coming in and going out.
Exactly. It ebbs and flows, just like the moon waxes and wanes. The tidal waves come in and go out. Same with business. It waxes and wanes. And while this may not have been a fit for me, I know eventually that's going to come back to me. And I also believe that's going to come back to me tenfold or more, just simply because, again, giving without expectation of receiving anything back, but just knowing that part of the whole process of business, of life, is to give. And
it feels good.
Yes,
that's the biggest part.
Yes, it does. Well, yeah, because we all love getting that phone call back of like, hey, thank you for recommending so-and-so. You're right, this is going to be a much better fit. Or didn't go with them, but the second person you recommended, oh my gosh, they're amazing too. That's going to be a better fit. I love getting those phone calls.
Exactly. Yeah, same here.
Right. Of just, hey, do you know, have you heard? And then what's also is then that gives you, one of the ways I found that it comes back to me is then when I meet people are like, oh my gosh, I've heard of you. I've heard so much about you and I've never met this person. And I'm like blown away. And having that value and brand and reputation out there is
because people talk.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Even if you leave a bad taste in their mouth, they're talking. If you leave a good taste in their mouth, they're talking that way. So
I'd rather leave a good taste.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So where would you like to go with this business?
With 5 rings, I want to go to the top. I have a goal set in mind for this next year, and in my 3 to 5 years is I would like to see myself as an executive vice president. And kind of running my own agency by myself. Still have my mentors around, but truly not leaning on them as much as I am now. And having my own agency of agents relying on me to help their growth and ensuring their growth. And it's not just, it's actually ensuring their growth. It's not just relying on me for growth, but ensuring.
To be there for them and to help them.
Because I take that personal. I want them to grow as much as I am. And then as far as the podcast, that's kind of funny. That's still such a fun hobby that I don't know. Like, I don't have a plan for it necessarily. It's still just something fun to do right now.
For sure.
Sponsorship would be great, but I haven't figured out what that looks like yet and how to kind of play that because I don't want that to take away from the authenticity of it. But I also can see that that could be an income stream. And as the financial gal, I should probably look at, somehow monetizing that.
For sure.
But again, not just to fill my pockets, but to spread that wealth across several platforms and individuals and into my community.
I mean, and also it's that give concept too. If you're giving value away for free and you're doing that, there's still something that comes back from that.
Right.
And whether it's in the form of, people just knowing about your brand awareness.
Right.
That was one of the original reasons why I started this podcast was brand awareness, get my name out there, get to know the people in the community.
Right.
And so it's that's a big aspect. That's worth it for me right there.
And giving a platform because you have a great platform of, between the podcast and putting it out on Facebook, so do I. And it helps get other people out there that it's free media, if you will. It's a free platform of media. And what's ironic, as we were talking before, as we were setting up for your podcast today, when I went asking friends to do this, it was kind of, would you please help me? And now it's kind of turned to other people are like, could I be a guest? And I'm like, of course you can.
Yeah.
I mean, clarify, you do have to be a woman. I'm just going to put that out there. I've had a little bit of pushback, but I think it's been in jest of the guys are like, wait, what about us? And I'm like,
yeah. There's a podcast out there you can start called Guys.
Yeah.
Guys, something.
Right. There's something you guys can start. But here's the big thing also that I love about Five Rings. And again, why I kind of came into the podcast the way I did is the financial industry is still only about 1% women. It's still pretty male dominated.
Yeah.
And what studies show us, and that Five Rings has been able to capitalize on, is that women and men think about money differently. We truly do. It's part of our physiology. It's part of our cultural norms. It's just part of who we are as well. And so being able to have those safe conversations around that, and men typically won't have those same conversations that women will do. So that's why.
Let me hit this button real quick.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
So that's why we have the conversations the way we do, and that's why I set the podcast up the way I did.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
So what do you think have been some of the hardest challenges with starting this business?
Some of myself.
Okay.
Getting out of my own way. Learning the concepts, the principles, the programs, the accounts that are in the financial industry.
And did they help you get out of your own way? Your business or your what are they?
My mentors.
Mentors. There's a word that I'm looking for. It doesn't matter.
But no. Again, it comes back to work harder on yourself than you do your business, and your business will grow. So, coming out of my grief from losing my husband of 25 years and having everything I knew about my life being completely gone and completely destroyed. Yes, I still had my 4 sons. They didn't change, but our whole relationship, our whole dynamic of being in the world changed.
Yeah.
And so having to rebuild yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I also had some major health issues at the same time that my husband died. I had to physically heal first, and part of that was also mental healing and emotional healing, and had to make some big leaps. When I moved back to Colorado Springs, I came back to Colorado Springs with $2,000 to my name, and I knew one thing. I knew I was living for 6 months. Those were the 2 things I knew. That was it. And
what made you do? Why'd you do that?
The reason I moved back was twofold. Where I was living previously had left a very bitter taste in my mouth because of a circumstance that has occurred, and I wanted to get away from that as much as possible. Also, it was a smaller community, and because I was making a couple of waves due to that original circumstance, small communities are small communities for a reason, and sometimes being a mouth in a small community is not a great thing to be. But I was essentially decrying a situation that had happened, and
you needed to change.
I needed to change. There was not good. The doors were closing, and so it was best hope. This is where I'm at. And a friend was very kind and very generous to give me a place to live for 6 months in Green Mountain Falls. That gave me extra time to heal a little bit more emotionally, and then I just jumped into starting the business. And again, had to get out of my own way, had to fight through my insecurities, my lack of feeling like I wasn't competent enough to do the business on a lot of levels, not just in the coming brand new into the financial industry, but also coming brand new back into a community where I knew very few people, especially business community where I know nobody.
Knew nobody.
Yeah, knew nobody. Thank you. I know a lot of people now. Yeah. And then just jumping in and being okay with that failing fast, right? And joining networking groups and, falling flat on my face a couple of times, other times kind of just scraping my knee, but again, getting back up and keep going and knowing that I was put on this path for a reason and to just keep going forward. And even when I doubt myself, find a way to get around that.
Yeah, yeah. So what were some of those insecurities that you had to overcome?
That I wasn't competent. I mean, confidence you can have, right? We can all kind of pull that off. But when the rubber meets the road, it really does come down to feeling competent. And that was one of my biggest insecurities.
So imposter syndrome, you would say?
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit. And then it's kind of the realization over, especially the last 6 months and starting the podcast and sitting down with some very serious clients, all of a sudden kind of was like, oh, I actually do know this stuff, and to trust myself. To know this when the rubber hit the road, to be able to say, oh, I do have the right words, or I do know the knowledge.
Trust in the process. I mean, Five Rings Financials probably built a solid, proven system.
Yes, their system is very well proven, and knowing that I'm set up to not fail, and that when I call on my mentors, they're right there, can say, you've done a great job. Here's where we keep going. And also recognizing where I've hit that boundary, right? And being able to trust myself to say, I am now outside my comfort zone as far as what I know. And I do need to bring in a mentor, and trusting that mentor is going to have my back and going. And so that's been the biggest part of, that's my own insecurity coming through. And then also just that I have the bigger insecurity of that I can now do this for myself. Without my partner in crime, 25 years. I was married to him starting at 18. In 25 years, that's an entire lifetime. And to be able to say I can do it on my own, as hard as that is, obviously still very emotional, is fantastic. Would I want him here? By all means.
For sure.
But also there's a part of me, and I know he's super proud. I'm super proud of myself. Which is what he'd want, is that I am doing it for myself now, which is the win, right?
You've got this.
Most days.
Yeah.
Other days we'll just fake it till we make it.
Hey, yeah, I believe you got this. You've been doing a really good job.
Thanks.
I've known you for about a year now, I think. And just to see where you're coming and coming so far, and I guess we're both growing together.
Yes, isn't this fun? Yeah, and that's been the fun thing too, is a lot of the people that I've met in the Colorado Springs area as I've been growing the podcast, but more importantly, growing my business, is some of them were fairly new or relatively new, or maybe just 1 or 2 steps ahead of me. And because when I first met them, I thought, gosh, they're so far ahead of me. I'm not going to be able to catch up. And then as I got to know them and what have you, I'm like, oh, wait, you were only 1 or 2 ahead of me. Wow. And so watching that grow together, and then some of these amazing relationships that I started as business have become amazing friends. And that's been a whole thing too, that I don't think people understand. When you become a widow or widower, your friendships change. You lose a lot of friends because of that passage.
For sure.
And so being able to find new friends who meet me where I'm at and just accept, like that was another huge thing coming through back to Colorado Springs of, I don't know anybody. Like I know a couple people. I've got some great handfuls of friends I've known here for a long time. But now finding new friends, that's also been, like the icing on the cake, if you will.
And you went to high school out here, right?
Oh, yeah. Colorado Springs is my hometown.
Yeah.
I was born and raised here, met my husband here, married here, graduated high school, graduated college here.
Okay.
3 of my 4 sons were born here. So, yeah, I've been feeding the giraffes at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo for over 45 years.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, I have fond memories of that.
For sure.
So I came home. And again, home didn't disappoint.
That's
and
good.
So I found some amazing people like yourself and other amazing people who've been on your podcast or on my podcast in the business community, and have just kind of enveloped me and said, you're home, and here you are.
What's wild is I got here and I feel like I came home. And that was my first time here.
Yep.
Like in my life.
It has that way.
Yeah.
Even when David and I were in the military and we're stationed, and we would come back, or he had to go to a hardship tour and I came back, it was always like coming home. And home was always where he was, but when I couldn't be there, this was always home. And so it's very interesting to see how that still plays out. And yeah, that's my mountain, Pikes Peak. I share it with everybody. It's America's mountain, but truly, there's something just that's very calming there.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. It's something about this city.
Yeah, there's just something about it's a big city, but yet there's a home, small town feel to it. That's amazing about it.
It's wild for how big the city is in population, how small the downtown is.
Yeah, well, that, and also like you're only like the 7 steps of Kevin Bacon, right? Like have you ever heard that game? So back in the 90s, there was a thing called 7 steps to Kevin Bacon. But within talking to 1 or 2 people, you find out that 1 or 2 people.
Oh yeah, the degrees of separation.
Yes, right. There was a game.
It's separation Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, but back in the 90s, there was a game that came out called the 7 degrees of 7 Bacon that you could honestly, it was a game.
Hold on, Kevin Bacon?
Kevin Bacon, the movie star.
Yeah, okay.
That you could name a movie and within 7 people find
That's
a
cool.
movie that they had all been, that he had been in with them.
I need to make that an app.
And it was super fun to play because it was just like you could name one random actor and within 7 people find a movie that they had been in together.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So again, 7 degrees of separation, but
Nice.
Colorado Springs I feel like is like a 1 to maybe 3 degree separation that within 1 to 2 people, all of a sudden we all know the same people again. And that's been great.
I like it. Yeah, I love the Kevin Bacon separation. That's cool.
Pop culture reference.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, before we wrap this up, is there anything that you would like to promote specifically today?
Honestly, I'm going to back up Brandy and Nunez and Leo Nunez's nonprofit challenge. Guys, we're getting hit hard. We're getting hit hard with the COVID, and we're seeing businesses close down. We're seeing nonprofits take a hit. Our community's going to take a hit. It is truly to get the economy back up on its feet, to keep maintaining kind of where we're at. And unfortunately, I really think, I'm not a prognosticator, but I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's going to take grassroots. It's going to take the people caring for ourselves and caring in our community. So I'm going to hashtag nonprofit challenge, and I'm going to challenge people to go out and donate time, energy, goods, funds, whatever to local nonprofits. For me, my nonprofit near and dear to my heart that I talk about all the time is CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates. This serves a huge support in our community for kids in foster care, being a voice for them, advocating for them in the court system. And if that's something that somebody wants to talk about, please come talk to me. I'm happy to talk about it. Reach out to CASA. Go to an informational meeting. Also, the Hangar for CASA, which is a free store that kiddos, specifically teenagers, can go and shop for clothes and toiletry and personal items. They are always taking donations. Specifically right now, we need clothing of all kinds for teenagers. Everything from socks to underclothes to warm jackets. That's also not to try and take away from other nonprofits that are out there, but pick a nonprofit, pick 2, pick 3, go support them in some way, somehow. Mine is always CASA.
And then tag someone else in it. That's the
and
nonprofit.
then tag somebody else. Bring your friends along. And so
challenge them to do it as well.
Challenge them to go pick 3 nonprofits to support. Tri-Lakes Care is another great one, doing some amazing things on the north end of town. The Springs Rescue Mission for our friends without an address, again, and our neighbors without an address. There's so many amazing nonprofits in this town. And ultimately, though, to keep our community, the amazing community that it is, to keep our economy somewhat in motion and to rebuild our economy after we get through this whole COVID stuff, we are definitely going to need to see grassroots and people helping people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how the world gets better. It's just like, when we're talking about mindset in business, when we're talking about COVID, yes, we can be safe, but where do we see the opportunities? Where do we see the ways that we can impact and help?
Right. And
instead of all the negative stuff.
We hear all the negative, but also we also know, going through the Great Depression, we know grassroots was what brought it through. It was people relying on neighbors and neighbors relying on neighbors and that piece. But also we saw a great time of innovation and a great time of creation. And this is a perfect opportunity. If you're kind of sitting there going, I don't know what to do, talk to somebody, start using your imagination, innovate, create. there's ways forward, we can do it safely, do it. And then, my own personal shout out for my business. If you want to learn more about wine, women, and wealth or Money 101, shoot me something through Facebook, through Coffee, Chicks, and Cash, the Facebook page, Danielle McCarthy on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Reach out. Let me have a conversation. Let me teach you about money. # not your typical financial gal.
Exactly. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. This was super
yeah,
fun.
this has been a good conversation, and
Yes.
I think it can provide some value for the community.
Nice.
And so we'll wrap this up. This has been the Colorado Springs Business Podcast. Today here with Danielle McCarthy with five rings financial.
Yes.
Is it just financial?
Yep,
5 rings
Five
financial?
Rings Financial.
Okay, sweet. All right. Well, we'll see you guys on the next episode, and bye-bye.